Okay, tonight is Alma chapter 44.
And it came to pass that they did stop and withdrew a pace from them. And Moroni said unto Zarahemnah, Behold, Zarahemnah, that we do not desire to be men of blood. Ye know that ye are in our hands, yet we do not desire to slay you. Behold, we have not come out to battle against you, that we might shed your blood for power, neither do we desire to bring any one to the yoke of bondage. But this is the very cause for which ye have come against us. Yea, and ye are angry with us because of our religion. But now ye behold that the Lord is with us, and ye behold that he has delivered you into our hands. And now I would that ye should understand that this is done unto us because of our religion and our faith in Christ. And now ye see that ye cannot destroy this our faith. Now ye see that this is the true faith of God. Yea, ye see that God will support and keep and preserve us so long as we are faithful unto him and unto our faith and our religion, and never will the Lord suffer that we shall be destroyed, except we should fall into transgression and deny our faith.
We have the leader of the Nephite army, Moroni, speaking to the leader of the Lamanite army, named Zarahemnah, and he's saying some of the things that we already had read from the previous chapter. All right, so it starts out, we're saying that okay, we got you now, all right, but yet it's not our desire to kill you all. So just listen to what we have to say here, right? We didn't come into this battle to put anybody into bondage. We're not trying to grow our kingdom by war, right? But really, you're the ones who were doing that. But that our main cause, as was said already, was that we're just trying to defend ourselves and defend our faith, our religion, our homes, our families, and so forth. Okay, so they're doing this for a good cause. But now, see, notice he's especially coming into the part about the God part here. Okay, so the God and religion. He says, you guys are angry with us because we said we're standing up for God, or we're standing up for our religion, and but yet God delivered you into our hands. See, you fought against us, and God was on our side, and this is what happened. And so, because we were trying to protect our religion, church, family, and so forth, that God protected us, and God helped us to win here. So he's basically trying to preach to him at the same time as negotiating a truce here, right? So saying that if God was on our side, and that's why this happened, right? As it says in 3, so that you should understand that this is done because of our religion, our faith in Christ. Okay, you can't destroy our faith, right? And this is what it's like to be followers of God, that God will protect us as long as we're serving him. Okay, so this was the faith that they had, and so he's just explaining to him that's why this happened. That's what the enemy wanted to hear at that point, all right? But yet that was the way it was, so he's going to explain it that way.
And now, Zarahemnah, I command you in the name of that all-powerful God, who has strengthened our arms, that we have gained power over you by our faith, by our religion, and by our rites of worship, and by our church, and by the sacred support which we owe to our wives and our children, by that liberty which binds us to our lands and our country, yea, and also by the maintenance of the sacred word of God, to which we owe all our happiness, and by all that is most dear unto us. Yea, and this is not all. I command you by all the desires which ye have for life, that ye deliver up your weapons of war unto us, and we will seek not your blood, but we will spare your lives, if ye will go your way, and come not again to war against us. And now, if ye do not this, behold, ye are in our hands, and I will command my men that they shall fall upon you, and inflict the wounds of death in your bodies, that ye may become extinct, and then we will see who shall have power over this people. Yea, we will see who shall be brought into bondage.
He's giving them the terms of the truce here. And notice it's a kind of a long oath there, right? It's starting in 5, right? In the name of God and our religion and our church and everything that we've stood up for here. In the name of all of that, all right? I want you to do 2 things. We want you to just hand over your weapons of war right now, so this way we know you're not going to kill us when we turn our backs. And then second, we want you to leave and don't come back, basically, or at least don't come again to make war against us. We want you to make an oath that you're not going to come back and fight again, because what's the point then, right? I mean, we could kill you now, but we don't want to do that. But if you're going to just go away and then go get a bigger army and come back next week, well then we may as well kill you now, right? So that's the terms, right? So he's saying that accept the terms and you can leave, and if not, then we have to kill you, I guess for this this phrasing, we don't just say we're going to kill you. We say we're going to inflict the wounds of death in your bodies until you become extinct. Right? So that's what he's saying. We'll wipe you out, right? if you don't accede to our terms here.
And now it came to pass that when Zarahemnah had heard these sayings, he came forth and delivered up his sword and his scimitar and his bow into the hands of Moroni, and said unto him, Behold, here are our weapons of war. We will deliver them up unto you, but we will not suffer ourselves to take an oath unto you, which we know that we shall break, and also our children. But take our weapons of war, and suffer that we may depart into the wilderness. Otherwise we will retain our swords, and we will perish or conquer. Behold, we are not of your faith. We do not believe that it is God that has delivered us into your hands, but we believe that it is your cunning that has preserved you from our swords. Behold, it is your breastplates and your shields that have preserved you.
In verse 8, he gives the response, all right? He's been given the terms, and so basically he's accepting one out of two, right? Remember we said it with two things. Give us your weapons and promise that you're not going to fight anymore. So it's, well, here's the weapons, all right? So this way, you know we're not going to kill you right now, but we just want to leave. We're not going to make a promise that we're not going to keep, right? Because, yeah, what's the point, right? So, I mean, like I said, you can see, well, maybe there's some honor in that, all right? Because it would be easier to just say whatever he wants to hear, all right? Which, unfortunately, in today's world, that's more the way it is. People just say what you want to hear, and then even if they have no intention of keeping their word. But here, he says, well, what's the point of making a promise, and then we're going to break it anyway? And in fact, he even said, either we will, or our children will, right? Because, as we were saying, that this battle has gone back and forth for over 500 years. So even if I today say I will never fight another war against you, well, I can't speak for the whole Lamanite nation. Our children and their children are going to come and fight against your children and their children, right? So it's not going to end like that. So, right? So he says there's really no point in me saying that. And so if it really comes down to that, then give me back the swords and everything, and then we'll just fight until we die. All right, this is or the way he puts it, we'll perish or conquer. Right, so we'll just fight until to the death if that's what it has to be. Right, so he says we're willing to leave peacefully, but we can't promise that we'll never come back and fight again. And then in 9 now it goes into the faith part of it. Right, so it says behold, we're not of your faith, and we don't really believe what you just said that God delivered us into your hands, that God made you win. They're looking at it and what they can see. They say, well, of course you won. You had better weapons than us. You were better prepared. You had armor. You had breastplates. You had helmets. Of course you won, right? And plus you even had some good strategy. Of course, never mind that they got the strategy. Remember how they got the strategy in the previous chapter? Right. They got it by praying to God. All right. So that and then God told Alma what the enemy's plan was, and so that was how their strategy came about. But there's somebody who's not of faith is obviously going to look at that and say, well, it's just what you can see. Well, of course you won. You were better prepared than we were. You had better weapons. We're the bad guys, and you're the good guys. God was on your side and was against us. I don't believe that. Right? So he's not buying that part. So as a result, he says, no, we'll leave you our swords, but we're not going to promise that we won't come back again some other day.
And now when Zarahemnah had made an end of speaking these words, Moroni returned the sword and the weapons of war which he had received unto Zarahemnah, saying, Behold, we will end the conflict. Now I cannot recall the words which I had spoken. Therefore, as the Lord liveth, ye shall not depart, except ye depart with an oath, that ye will not return again against us to war. Now, as ye are in our hands, we will spill your blood upon the ground, or ye shall submit to the conditions which I have proposed. And now when Moroni had said these words, Zarahemnah retained his sword, and he was angry with Moroni, and he rushed forward that he might slay Moroni. But as he raised his sword, behold, one of Moroni's soldiers smote it even to the earth, and it broke by the hilt. And he also smote Zarahemnah, that he took off his scalp, and it fell to the earth. And Zarahemnah withdrew from before them into the midst of his soldiers.
After the initial exchange, so now Moroni says, well, I gave you the terms, all right? So if you're not willing to take the terms, well then here, take your weapons back, and we're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep fighting. So he gave him back his sword, and he says, oh, I'm not gonna take back what I said. So just because you said no doesn't mean it's okay, right? These were the terms, and so either you agree to the terms or we keep fighting. And he says that now that you're in our hands, we'll spill your blood on the ground. And in other words, we'll continue the fight that we had, and until one side is completely wiped out, and then we know which side that's going to be. So that'll be the plan. So upon hearing that, as you saw in verse 12, it says, well, Zarahemnah took a sword and went running to kill Moroni, but somebody else got to him first. And see, we often say that like the natives of the Americas today are these people, the remnants of Lamanite people. He scalped them, right? Like the Indians used to do. You get a scalp, right? So I guess that's what he did, right? Now, it's it's kind of gross to really describe what that's about, but he picked it up by the hairs. I mean, I guess enough to, the skin off the top of the head, I guess, of the hair. But the key is it wasn't enough to kill him, right? Because he ran in amongst everybody else at that point, and they were able to pick up the scalp, and just showing that they're not going to win this particular battle as it stands now. So either accept the terms or this is what's going to happen.
And it came to pass that the soldier who stood by, who smote off the scalp of Zarahemnah, took up the scalp from off the ground by the hair, and laid it upon the point of his sword, and stretched it forth unto them, saying unto them with a loud voice, Even as this scalp has fallen to the earth, which is the scalp of your chief, so shall ye fall to the earth, except ye will deliver up your weapons of war, and depart with a covenant of peace. Now there were many, when they heard these words, and saw the scalp which was upon the sword, that were struck with fear. And many came forth and threw down their weapons of war at the feet of Moroni, and entered into a covenant of peace. And as many as entered into a covenant, they suffered to depart into the wilderness.
All right, so you have a nice display now, right, to kind of convince the people as to see things our way, right? So they picked up the scalpel and the sword, and so see, right, this is what happened to your leaders. So just the same way this scalp fell to the ground, you're all going to fall on the ground if you don't do what we've suggested here. Okay, so sometimes one graphic display is worth more than a lot of words. Okay, so they're able to get the point. A lot of them. Okay, and so as it says now, this is what happened. Is a lot of them say, well, he's not speaking for me. All right, so I'm willing to promise that I won't come and fight again. So that's a lot of them just want to speaking for themselves now. So that many came forward. Here you go. Here's my sword. Do you want me to sign something? Okay, I'm not gonna fight against you anymore. And so those who did that, they were allowed to leave. All right, so they left in peace. And they were allowed to depart into the wilderness. They left, okay? So basically promising they're never going to return. And probably just happy to be promising them to never return at that point, okay? So they were just going to speak for themselves at that point. But it's not everybody's going to do it, but at least some of them were willing to say, well, we'd rather just live and go home and not be part of this anymore.
Now it came to pass that Zarahemnah was exceeding wroth, and he did stir up the remainder of his soldiers to anger, to contend more powerfully against the Nephites. And now Moroni was angry because of the stubbornness of the Lamanites. Therefore he commanded his people that they should fall upon them and slay them. And it came to pass that they began to slay them, yea, and the Lamanites did contend with their swords and their might. But behold, their naked skins and their bare heads were exposed to the sharp swords of the Nephites. Yea, behold, they were pierced and smitten, yea, and did fall exceedingly fast before the swords of the Nephites, and they began to be swept down, even as the soldier of Moroni had prophesied.
At this point that some of the men are deserting, okay, that they're just speaking of themselves, that they're going to take off. So now the leader is even more angry now, right? So bad enough you had to take off my scalp, all right, and that you're trying to force me into something I don't want to do. But now part of my men are even taking off on me, so they kind of came together again into another battle here. But it says even Moroni was angry at this point. These guys are really stubborn. I don't know what we have to do to convince them. We're just trying to tell them to go home in peace, and they won't get the message here. All right. So therefore now they're going to have another little skirmish here. But as it says in 18, it says they were at the same disadvantage as before. All right. They still don't have any armor or helmets. And they were still all exposed, and so as it says in 18, it says they were exposed to the sharp swords of the Nephites, and so they fell fast, all right, and they were swept down fast for the same reason they were losing the first time around. So it doesn't matter how angry you get, if you're exposed, you're exposed, okay, and so they were still not able to really make any headway here, and part of their people had already left anyway. So.
Now Zarahemnah, when he saw they were all about to be destroyed, cried mightily unto Moroni, promising that he would covenant and also his people with them if they would spare the remainder of their lives, that they never would come to war again against them. And it came to pass that Moroni caused that the work of death should cease again among the people, and he took the weapons of war from the Lamanites, and after they had entered into a covenant with him of peace, they were suffered to depart into the wilderness.
Now he agrees, right? After more people were killed and stuff, now he's going to agree to what was originally suggested in the first place, right? So that's why it says when he saw they were all about to be destroyed, he cried violence to Moroni and said, "Okay, we'll make the covenant, we'll make the promise, and so spare our lives, and we'll go, and we won't come back and fight against you again." Now, as we've already said, I mean, I don't know that he himself was in a position to speak for the entire Lamanite nation, but at least I assume for he himself probably was not going to come back again and fight against the Nephites, right? So they made that promise, and then in 20, okay, let's stop. And they took the weapons, and they made their covenant, whatever they were going to do that. I don't know if they signed something, but they made their agreement, and then the people were allowed to leave, those who were left.
Now the number of their dead was not numbered because of the greatness of the number. Yea, the number of their dead was exceeding great, both on the Nephites and on the Lamanites. And it came to pass that they did cast their dead into the waters of Sidon, and they have gone forth and are buried in the depths of the sea. And the armies of the Nephites, or of Moroni, returned and came to their houses and their lands. And thus ended the 18th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi, and thus ended the record of Alma, which was written upon the plates of Nephi.
From this battle, there were many killed, really, even on both sides, right? So, like last week, we read about how when the Lamanites were kind of backed in the corner, that they came out kind of furiously fighting, and so they were like actually splitting the breastplates and so forth, so that there were some Nephites killed, but certainly a lot of Lamanites were killed. So, as it says in 21, the number of dead was so great that we didn't bother to try to count it at this point. They just kind of pushed all the bodies into the river, right? So we pushed all the bodies into the riverside, and so now they're buried in the depths of the sea. It's too many to even think about digging graves or anything, so they just pushed all the bodies into the river, right? And now, of course, those who were left were able to go back home to their houses and their lands that they were defending in the first place. So that's that part of it is a happy ending, if you will. They were able to go back and say, okay, we successfully defended our houses, our lands, our families, our religion, and they're able to continue on serving God as they were before. Right? So now in 24 it says that this is the end of the 18th year of the reign of the judges, as we're keeping the record. Right? But then the last sentence says, "Thus ended the record of Alma, which was written upon the plates of Nephi." Okay, so what that means is that in essence, this is really the end of the book of Alma as written by Alma. Okay, it's not the end of the book of Alma as recorded in here, because you see we have chapter 45 is coming next, all right? But this is actually the end of what Alma wrote, right? And so picking up in chapter 45, he's going to turn the records over to somebody else, basically to his son. His son Helaman is going to pick up the writing from here, but they decided not to cut it into two parts, but rather it's still going to be the book of Alma, so the rest of his writing will be the book of Alma. Maybe they didn't want to confuse it because Helaman's son Helaman also was a writer, and that's the book of Helaman, so it would have been first Helaman, second Helaman, I guess, if they would have broken it that way, but instead they just kept his writing in with the book of Alma. So.